Hi everyone, I welcome you all towards my YouTube channel, and today we are going to start with our first day preparation of history, which is a very important GS1. As part of your GS1, we'll be going in terms of depth, in terms of history, especially for UPSC exam preparation. We are going to cover up everything, and this is going to be the part one video in which we're going to learn about the timeline. Okay, part one video is just about the timeline. Don't worry, we'll be covering up as much as possible in this particular video, but in the part two onwards, we'll be starting to go in terms of dissection. What are the important chapters you need to learn from UPSC preparation? So, majorly, I'll be using my notes and in specific to teach you out. So, don't worry, it's going to be super easy, super important. All that I'm just requesting you guys, just like listen to the class, and then if you're able to go with the flow, then that would be more than enough. All right, so let's start with your entire prep and wish you all the best. One by one we'll be covering up all the aspects, so I request all of you to gather a book and pen and trust me, history is one of the best subjects you can score very well in case if you prepare properly. That's only one request I have. So let's get started with preparing in terms of history. So guys, the first concept which I would like to teach you is about, in history, archaeologists and historians. You must know who is an archaeologist. Archaeologists are those people who try to go in terms, excavating. They go to historical places. They try to figure out what and all is basically lying within the history domain. And for example, they look into the pots, coins, as well as the paintings, sculptures, and they try to explore and excavate into it. That's why, see, history, nobody from the past is going to come and tell you, see, Pavan, this is the history thing. No, it is your duty to go research back and then try to figure out the things. And so it's called as history is basically about reconstruction. Okay, that's why I mentioned was there as history is about reconstruction. So you're going towards the past and then you're learning about it. That's the beauty of history. And archaeologists are the ones, as well as they go in terms of studying the remains of building, mode of stone, brick, paintings. So they are archaeologists who basically go in terms of studying aspect, and even historians. They figure out the best kind of resources, and because of great historians is one of the reason why you're studying history. So yes, let's be grateful towards them, and let's start with our prep. Okay, now remember that for the fact today, all that which you're going to learn today, it's going to be super important and super crucial. And starting with the first important concept, it's about BC, before Christ. That's what we're going to learn first. So what is this BC, before Christ? So if you observe this timeline, 1 BC, 2 BC, 3 BC, 5, 4 BC, 5 BC. So this is basically called as before BC. And after Jesus Christ was basically born, is called as what? It's called as Anno Domini. It's called as what? Anno Domini. So this BC, before Christ is counted backwards. Okay, it's called as counted backwards before the common era. That's called as before common era. Counting goes backwards. Whereas over here in Anno Domini, the common era, the counting goes front. It goes forward. All right. So now BP is called as what? Before present. What is called as before present? So this is called the base year. This base year, which you can basically see, is called as base year. It started from 1950 before present. It's called as before present. Nothing much to be worried on. We'll be covering it up very depth as we go on in depth. Just write it down in your book. All that I'm just telling you, it's the basics of history first. So you understand the concepts, then you go next, it'll be very easy for you. Now, what is this carbon dating? Yeah, carbon dating, it's basically a technique that we use to automatically analyze and organic archaeological evidence and determine agents. So this, remember, okay, so carbon dating is basically a technology or a technique that we use to figure out. For example, in historic material, you're going to bring it to Pavan, and Pavan is going to use a carbon dating mechanism, and then he'll be able to figure out when this particular event and what was the time period of that particular thing, and what was that particular material made of. Everything will be able to understand with carbon dating. So it's nothing important for you, but it's generally used by this archaeologists. So you should know, right? If you somebody asks me that, Pavan, how was many things was basically discovered, it was basically because of carbon dating. Now let me tell you three important basic tips. Okay, I know many of you know it, but then to people who do not know, a decade is called as 10 years. So during the course of our classes, today is just the part one of the class. Over the course of part two, part three, I'll be using called as decade, century, millennium. So century means 100 years, and millennium means basically 1,000 years. Remember this one important concept. Now let me start with the timeline. Okay, so guys, remember, what is this Paleolithic age? Paleolithic age, it's basically known as primitive men. Where hunters were completely there. They used to exploit the nature. They used to kill animals. They used to eat into it, and they were like gross form of primitive kind of men. And this Ice Age movie I watched, right? So it was all during this Paleolithic age time. So this age is also called a Stone Age. Why? Because the stone was excessively used for tools, weapons, everything. They used to use this stone itself. So people kept moving resources, emptied and people start keeping on moving from one place to another place. So that's the reason they're called as nomadic hunters. They don't stay in one particular place. Okay, do you keep on moving from one place to other place? No, yeah, you're not a nomadic person, you have already settled down. So I'll be discussing about us in the later period, but remember, Paleolithic age mein kya hua tha? What happened in Paleolithic age time? They were the first whom they were the first hunter gatherers. So that's what we'll be trying to understand over here. Now it's also called as the oldest Stone Age period. Okay, the major tool like the Stone Age was basically used, and climate change occurred and ice started melting. Animals started coming towards the animals during this time, Paleolithic age. If you observe, ice started melting. Climate change was not like a new concept now. It was there even that time also. And if you observe, slowly animals started coming towards humans like this. So if you observe, little bit of cattle rearing and all started during Mesolithic age time. I'll go there over there. But before, I just want to tell you, which is the first animal who was close to humans? It's dog. The other reason even now also we tell, dog is a very close to human. Even I have a dog. It's so chubby chubby. Okay, his name is Bruno. I'll show it to you once. Okay. So second age is called as Mesolithic age. What do you mean by Mesolithic age? Humans little bit of what hunter gatherers, and little bit of there was little bit of agriculture started. So instead of people started moving, if Paleolithic age, what happened? People started moving, right? In Mesolithic age, what happened? People started settling down. Little bit they started with agriculture. Little bit they started with cattle rearing, and also this age is also called as Middle Stone Age. So Mesolithic age is also called as what? Middle Stone Age. Now next period is called as Neolithic age. What happened in Neolithic age? So Neolithic age is also called as the New Stone Age. Repeat. The Neolithic age is also called as the New Stone Age. The first farmers, it is basically called the first farmers in agriculture and animal husbandry was started. This was the first time they can ask in your prelims exam, which was the first period when the first farmers, agriculture and animal husbandry started. It was during which age? Neolithic age. Repeat, it's called as during the Neolithic age it started. It is also called as Neolithic Revolution. So Neolithic age is also called as Neolithic Revolution, and proper settlement took place. That means that people or these hunter gatherers, instead of moving, they started settling down in one particular place. That is the beauty of this. Okay. Now proper settlement took place, and the pottery started. For example, if you observe in Mesolithic period, agriculture they started doing. So all this kind of produce and all, when it is there, they require to store, right? That was a time during Neolithic age they started using this pottery mechanism. Pottery pots, and they'll be serving it, right? Saving it. So that pottery mechanism was basically started over here. Copper was the first. Copper was found first to be discovered by men. So copper was the first material, alloy was basically being discovered. We'll be even discussing about this bronze like alloy and all later page. But remember, this copper was first discovered during what? Neolithic age time. Just write it down, even the simple concepts, very important for your UPSC exam. Then what happened? The next one came was Chalcolithic age. Chalcolithic age, what happened was like this new way of culture started forming. Okay, what is this culture? It's basically about a way of life. People formed society, culture, a way of life started. That means what? So group of people settled down during which time? Neolithic age period. At that point of what happened? New kind of culture. For example, if all of us settling down, a society is formed. Do you agree with it? Yes, very good. A society is formed. So what happens? A new kind of culture is also being started. That's what you can see during what time? Chalcolithic age. Now, also during this time, if you observe, there is something called as Bronze Age, which is basically a next form of origination. Now, during the Bronze Age only, this Indus Valley civilization started. This exact, see, I'll tell you one thing. When you're learning timeline, don't study the exact time period, because different sources gives different notes for it. So I don't want you to confuse or get confused regarding the entire concept, but just keep these things in your mind. So 2600 to 1900 BC, Indus Valley civilization started, like this Harappan civilization. Everything was started, like trade, domestic welfare, and all this started one by one. Okay. So, and even about script language mechanism was even started. Now, I'll tell you one thing, okay? Culture you understood, right? It's a way of life. When people started, culture started over. Now, what is a civilization? People started noting down everything, like in the form of script. So remember, exactly after Paleolithic period, what it was during the Stone Age, Mesolithic period, what happened? Little bit of agriculture, little bit of cattle rearing started. Neolithic period, people started settling. People started settling, and agriculture started, animal husbandry started purely. Pottery mechanism was used. Then came what? Chalcolithic age. Chalcolithic age, what happened? Culture started coming. Bronze Age, Indus Valley civilization came, as well as script language and all was used. Now, next came was Vedic age. So now, what do you mean by this Vedic age? The group of people from Central Asia, Eastern Europe came to the northwest of the countries and settled. So these people from From which place? From Central Eastern Europe. They came and settled where? They came and settled in northern of the countries or northwest of countries, and they are called as what? Aryans. So who are these Aryans? They are the group of people speak a particular language. So nothing. So like different philosophers have given different connotation, negative connotation for the name called as Aryan. But the literal meaning of Aryan means what? It's a group of people who speak a particular language. They're called as Aryans. So they started the early Vedic period. So remember this. This was the time when early Vedic period. So they asked Aryans came during which particular time period? It was during the Vedic period. Though who are they? From which place? From Central Asian. So Central Asia, Eastern Europe. These people came to which place? The northwest of the countries, and they started settling. And they are called as Aryans. So in Vedic age also, I've mentioned over here like EVA and LVA. Early Vedic age and later Vedic age. You know what do you mean by early Vedic age? Like 1500 to 1000 BC. That was basically called as early Vedic age, Vedic era. And later Vedic age was basically from 1000 to 500 BC. Was it this one? I'll tell you what all developments happened during this particular period of time. Okay, don't worry. In depth, we'll be going, but I'm just showing you the timeline for today. If you're able to understand the timeline, it'll be easy for you to navigate. That's it. That was only my intention. Rig Vedic period was basically being composed EVP, early Vedic period, Rig Vedic age. So early Vedic period is also called as what? Rig Vedic age. Okay. Remember that Rig Vedic period was during which time? Was it during early Vedic period or later Vedic period time? So they can ask questions. UPSC recently asked a question. So it's important that you mention like early Vedic period. Now, they fought with each other for cattle and it was wealth. So at that point of time, during the Vedic period, what did they fight more for? They fought for cattle. At that point of time, they didn't fight for land. Land and all came later. It came, even though here and there, but majorly they were fighting for cattle because a person who had lot of cattle or cows, he was considered to be the superior king over there. So that's the reason there was always a battle between what? Cattle. And it was their wealth called as Gavishta. Okay. And these people didn't settle in one place. They started moving from one place to another place, but they even took out these animals and these cattle, and also they went out. And also during Vedic period was the first time a tribal leader, Rajan, was elected by the people. It was like an exact form of democracy. People elected him. But the thing is about, did the Rajan have a lot of power? No. Rajan didn't have all the power. They had to listen to the tribal assembly. I'll tell you when they got more powers. Okay. It was during the later Vedic period. Agriculture became the major source. Okay, in Vedic period, you understood what all complexities was there. They fought for the cattle, everything like that. But in the later Vedic period, little bit of slight shift started happening where Rajan became more powerful. Kingship started coming out. That this is very important. Now, along with that, the next concept is Mahajanapadas. So ultimately, after the Vedic period, if you observe, generally this Mahajanapadas start coming. Like for example, like now, if you observe during the later Vedic period time, people all started settling down one by one. So what happened? Society is formed, small kingdoms. They started forming like small kingdoms. Among them, 16 Mahajanapadas. So 16 kingdoms were very powerful, extremely very powerful. And that is the reason at that point of time, Buddhism came, Jainism came, they were very powerful. And one Mahajanapadas were very powerful, known as Magadhas. You heard about this Nalanda dynasty, right? The very famous Nalanda dynasty. So I'll explain to you. It's super interesting. Now on history starts. Okay. So I'm just telling you, small kingdoms started coming during later Vedic period. Now what happened? There was 16 kingdoms which became very powerful. Who are they called as? They're called as Mahajanapadas. Mahajanapadas. And one among them was super famous. Who are they called as? Magadhas. Okay. Magadhas, and they had two capitals at that point of time, Rajagraha and Pataliputra. Pataliputra